we talking about in the previous class? If anyone of you can tell me that. Okay, that's already over, right? I have to just cover an example on that. Surya? I've given you the concept of that along with all the different kinds of locks. Recovery and atomicity, right? So we were talking about recovery and atomicity. Right, Ma. So we were talking about recovery and atomicity. And in that, I was just talking something about log-based recovery. So to ensure atomicity despite failures, we are going with the method called as log-based recovery. If at all you remember this. Okay, this is the first method what we are going to work with, log-based recovery. And I've given a briefing about that in the previous class. Okay. So I think I took a small example of transferring $50 from account A to account B. And if at all a failure occurs, what are the problems that might lead? And in the process of recovery and atomicity, I told you we are going to work with two approaches. The first one is log-based recovery, and the second one is shadow paging. And the assumption would be the transactions run serially. That is, each transaction executes one after the other. That's the basic assumption. That's the basic assumption that you need to take. Okay. So what are the points that we need to focus on? I told you there are 2 points. The first point would be action taken during normal transaction processing and actions taken after a failure. So once you start a transaction or the transaction starts its execution, what are the actions that would be taken with respect to the normal execution of the transaction? So while the transaction is executing or processing, we have to ensure that enough information exists with us. Enough information exists with us in order we can recover from failures. So if at all we do not have any information, then the process of recovery would be very difficult. or sometimes impossible. And once you are ready with this, what are the actions that needs to be taken after failure in order to recover the database back to its original position? In that, we will be talking about the first concept, log-based recovery. The first concept is log-based recovery. My screen is not visible, Anil. Now is it okay? Okay. Okay, so we are talking about the first concept, which is nothing but your log-based recovery. And in this, we are working with a set of logs. We are working with a set of logs, and a log is nothing but a sequence of log records. And whenever you are working with logs, you're only going to maintain the logs with respect to the update activities. That is nothing but whenever you're trying to perform a write operation, you're not bothered about the read operation. You'll be working with the concept of update operations in order to maintain the log. Now, how we are going to work with the log would be, I'll just take a small example. See, I hope it's viewed by all of you. When the transaction is initiated or it starts, I have to create a log record this way. I'm using the angular brackets. In that, the name of the transaction which is being initiated, comma, start. So if at all I say the transaction number is T1, comma, start. So once a transaction called T1 enters into the system, you're going to work with T1, comma, start as the log. And then when a transaction tries to modify a particular data item, okay, so assume that A is a data item. The original value of A is equal to 200, and new value of A is 300. Then how we are going to write a log record for this would be transaction T1 is modifying the A value, wherein the A value originally is 200 and A value after modification is 300. So this is the way you're going to work with the update operations. You're going to write this way: T1, comma, A. T1 is a transaction which is modifying the value of A. What is the value? That is A. Next, the original value, this is called as the old value of A, and this particular value is called as the new value of A. Okay. And once you feel that you have completed working with your transaction, then you write a log record called T1, comma, commit. So this way you're going to work with. So these are the three major steps you're going to work with. Whatever modifications you have to work with, then there's something called as TI, comma, start. A transaction called TI has entered the system, and then you have called a TI, comma, commit, which says that the transaction has left the system. I hope the basics are clear, ma. Okay. Now, in log-based recovery, you're going to work with two approaches, ma. For recovery process, you're going to work with two approaches in log-based recovery. Okay. The first one is deferred database modification. The first one is deferred database modification, and the second one is immediate database modification. So you're going to work with two kinds of technologies over here. The first one is deferred, and the second one is immediate database modification. Are you able to hear me, all of you? Yes? Okay, right. So I'm talking about the first recovery mechanism, deferred database modification. It ensures transaction atomicity by recording all database modifications in the log. So I told you, log-based recovery's main goal is to record all the modifications into the logma. That is what I'm trying to do in deferred database modification also. It ensures transaction atomicity by recording all database modifications into the log, but defers the execution of all write operations. What do you mean by defer is you are just trying to delay. You're just trying to delay all the write operations of a transaction until the transaction partially commits. So you are just giving a delay until you see the last statement of the transaction. Okay, that is called as your partially committed transaction. Okay, transaction has performed all actions. Then it reaches the partially committed state. Okay, and the recovery procedure of deferred database modification is based on something which is called as a redo operation. Something which is called as a redo operation. Okay, and sometimes a deferred database modification is also called as no undo / redo mechanism. No undo / redo operation. Means whenever I'm talking about log-based recovery, I have got two operations that I need to perform. One is undo, the other one is redo. But deferred database modification only performs the redo operation. It does not perform an undo operation. That is the reason no undo. I'm not performing any undo operation. I'm only interested in performing a redo operation. That is the meaning of this. Okay. Now, what I mean by a redo of a transaction TI? What I mean by redo of a transaction TI? It sets the value of all data items updated by the transaction to the new values from the log of records. From the log records. So what is the job of redo function would be? It sets the values of all data items updated by transaction TI to the new values. And when this operation is performed would be whenever I have got a TI comma start and a TI comma commit operation only. So see, transaction TI needs to be redone if and only if the log contains both the records TI comma start and the record TI comma commit. TI comma start and TI comma commit. If at all they are existing, then only I can redo the operation. I'll just take a small example in order to explain you the concept of deferred database modification. It's very simple. Once you look at the example, it would be very simple. See, I'm working with the original database contents at the beginning. Original database contents A is equal to 100 and B is equal to 200. Okay, now I'm working with something called as transaction T1 with the following steps. Read A. I'm not using the brackets over here, don't get confused. or else I'll work with that. Read A. A is equal to A plus 100. Write of A. Then read of B. B is equal to B plus 200. Okay. Write of B. I'm working with that. Right. So this is the steps. Now I'm going to work with a set of log records over here. T1, comma, start. This is the first log record. For read operation, I do not have to enter the log record mark. Just try to understand that. I only told that only update operations need to be worked with. Okay. And whenever you're working with deferred database modification, you will only have the updated value of the variable. You will only have the updated value of the variable. Whenever you're working with deferred database modification, you're going to work with only the updated value. So T1, comma, A is the variable, comma, 200. Why I'm writing this 200? Just try to understand, ma. Here, I'm just performing a read operation. Read of A from database would be giving me 100. I hope it's clear. And then A is equal to A plus 100 would be A is equal to 200. Fine. Whenever I write this, A value would be 200. Okay. Then read of B would be 200 over here, and B is equal to B plus 200 means B is equal to 400. Fine. Okay. So this is my read operation. This is my modified value. Again, this is read B, and this is what? Modified value. Okay. So see, T1, comma, start, and whatever the modifications that are being done, that would be stored in the RAM, not in the database. Whatever the modifications that are being done would be stored in the RAM or shared memory with respect to the server, but not exactly in the database. That is what you have to understand. Okay. Now see, T1, comma, start, T1, comma, A, comma, 200. Then I'm going to work with the next operation. What is the next operation? T1, comma, B, comma, 400. I hope it's clear, ma, how I'm writing the log record. And I will work with a log record called T1, comma, commit. Okay. Assuming that my transaction has completed. Now I'll work with one more log record. One more log record over here. Just the same way. T1, comma, start. T1, comma, A, comma, 200. T1, comma, B, comma, 400. T1, comma, commit. T2, comma, start would be the first thing, because I have to start the transaction. And then I have P2, comma, C, comma, 600. So these are the two log records I've got, ma. This is the first log record with respect to T1 only. This is the second log record. Maybe some other transaction has started over here. That is the basic assumption. Now, CMR. How the process of recovery would be started if at all there is a failure. if at all there is a failure, how the process would be started. Okay. Now what is happening here would be, I have to work with one more variable called C over here. C is equal to, assume 400. So I've got three database objects in the database, right? I'm just making this different color. Okay. So A is equal to 100, B is equal to 200, C is equal to 400. Now the transaction is executed this way. Reading the value of A 100, A is equal to, so this is the starting point of my transaction. Transaction has entered the system. So T1 comma start. Once a transaction enters the system, starts its execution, I have to write a log record T1 comma start. All the log records are stored in the stable storage. Already I told you that. Then A is equal to A plus 100. So this is a modification or updation. So T1 comma A comma 200, then B is equal to B plus 200. So T1 comma B comma 400. Now what? T1 comma commit. Okay. Now what is happening over here is transaction fails after commit. So I'm writing a commit over here. Okay. After this, there is a failure. Now, what are the common contents of the database with respect to A and B? A is equal to 100, B is equal to 200. Okay, because the modifications were not done to the database, rather they were done to the shared memory or the RAM. Now, since there is a failure with respect to the system, what I have to do is I have to start working with the log records, because the basic assumption is stable storage does not fail. Now, once I see T1 comma start, if at all I have got T1 comma commit, once I see T1 comma start, if at all I've got T1 comma commit, then what I have to do is I have to do something called as redo of T1. So once I see T1 comma start and T1 comma commit, I have to go with redo of T. So what I mean by redo of T is whatever the modifications that T1 has done with respect to the database objects needs to be modified in the database. Now what is happening to the value of A? See here, T1, A, 200. This 200 is the new value. So I have to update the value of A by 200. So delete 100, make it as 200. Now B would be T1, B, 400. The new value of B is 400. So 400. Now see, once the transaction has executed successfully, I am making changes to the database objects such that the database stays in a consistent manner. Now, looking at the log 2. Yes, ma? Akash, what's your doubt? Yes, I told you that, but what I told you with respect to deferred database modification would be, I just require the new value. I just require the new value with respect to deferred database modification, Akash. So there is no way I'm going to work with the older value. Is it clear, ma? Okay. Now, looking at the second log record now. So I have got T1 comma start. I have to look through the log record so that I find T1 comma commit. Okay. So is there a T1 comma commit, ma? Yes. T1 comma start is there. T1 comma commit there. So what I have to do? I have to redo of T1. So redo of T1. A value is 200. This is already done. So what I'm trying to do is I have to delete this and update it by 200. and then T1B400. Already 400 is there. I have to update that to 400. Now, then I am committed. Now here what is happening? T2 comma start is there. T2 C 600 is there. After that, there is no T2 comma commit. There's no concept of T2 comma commit. So what I have to do? Roll back T2. This is what I have to do. So this is the recovery process of your deferred database management technique. It's deferred database technique. I hope it's clear. See, try to work with this one. This is the example. These are the three scenarios. Try to work on this particular example. So first one, what you have to do here. Second one, what you have to do here. Third one, what you have to do here. With respect to this particular example. Try to apply deferred database modification technique. I'm giving you 2 minutes to work out on that, ma. Are you able to do, ma? All of you? Yes, ma. Are you able to do or no? Which one you want, ma? The same example? See, ma. I'm working with T0 is equal to B minus 50, B plus 50, right? B. Then I'm working with a transaction called C1, sorry, T1, wherein I'm trying to modify the value of B. So assuming original value of A is 1000, B is 2000, and what? C is 700. Okay. Now these are the 3 log records I have maintained. The first one is T0 start, T0A 950, T0B 2050. I do not have T0 comma commit. So what I have to do? I have to roll this back because I do not have a log record called T0 start. Sorry, T0 commit. Whenever I see a T0 start log record, I have to look for T0 commit log record. Since I do not have T0 commit, I need to roll this back. Now look at this one. T0 start, T0A 950. Whatever the modified value of A, I'm writing it over here. Whatever the modified value of B, I'm writing it over here. Then I've got T0 commit. Since transaction T0 has executed successfully, I need to redo T0 such that the new value of A in the database would be 950 and B would be 2050. Then I have T1 comma start, T1 C600. I do not have T1 comma commit. So since I do not have T1 comma commit, I need to perform redo on T0 and roll back on T1. Redo on T0 with respect to this log and what here? Roll back over here. Now here what I have to do? T0 start is there, T0 commit is there, T1 start is there, T1 commit is there. So both redo operations I need to perform. So see here, A would be no redo actions need to be taken. And with respect to the log record B, redo of T0 must be performed since T0 commit is present. Now here, redo of T0 must be performed followed by redo of T1 since T0 commit and T1 commit are present over here. So this way you're going to work with deferred database modification. Is it clear, ma? Still you have any questions on that? All of you, please respond. Now talking about the second one, ma, immediate database modification. So whenever I'm talking about immediate database modification, the immediate database modification scheme allows database updates of an uncommitted transaction to be made as the rights are issued. Immediate means instantly. So instantly you are making changes to the database. instantly you are making changes to the database. And since you are making the changes to the database immediately, you might require the concept of undoing a transaction. So here you're performing two operations when you go for recovery. When you go for recovery, you're performing two operations. First one is undo, the second one is redo. So whenever you do not find a commit, you're going to undo a particular transaction. And whenever you find a commit, you're going to redo that particular transaction. So see, recovery procedure has two operations. Undo of TI restores the value of all data items updated by TI to their original values. So you're going from the changed values to the original values. Now redo of TI, all of you know this. Okay, so I'll be just going with the same example over here. Now what is the difference would be, the original value was 100. The original value of B was 200, and I think C I have taken as 400. Okay, now see, A is equal to 200, A is equal to 100, B is equal to 200, C is equal to 400. Now, whenever you are trying to work with immediate database modification, you need to store two values. You need to store two values of the variable. You have to store two values of the variable. So here what you're trying to do is, whenever there is an update operation, so here what you're going to write is T1 comma start when transaction enters the system. Now there is a modification over here with respect to A. A is equal to A plus 100. So what is the original value of A? You have to write it as 100. And new value of A is 200. So this is my original value. This is my new value of what? Of A, which has made the changes. Transaction T1 has made the changes. Then B also the same thing. 200 comma 400. Now then I've got T1 comma commit. Okay. Now here what I'm doing, again I'm just trying to modify this 100. Here B is 200 and here C is 600. So the original value was 400. Right. Now see what is happening here. So read A value is read from the database. A is equal to 100. So I'm having a value 100. A is equal to A plus 100. So here what will happen? A is equal to 200 would be reflected here. I'm just writing new is equal to 200. Okay. So this would be lost. This would be lost. New 200. Just for your understanding, I'm writing the value new or else it would be only 200 over there. Now B is equal to read as 200. B is equal to B plus 200. So this value would be, new value is 400. Okay. Now for this particular thing, after writing the value of B, I have committed. So I'm looking at the log record since there is a failure after commit. So T1 comma start, T1 A 100 200, T1 B 200 400, T1 comma commit. I've got the start as well as the commit. I've got the start as well as the commit. Then what I have to do? I have to go with redo. So redo with what I have to do? Redo operations with respect to transaction T1. I have to use the new values of A and B. So once I redo T1, the new value of A would be 200 and this also would be 400. Okay. Now, if at all I do not have T1 comma commit mark, do not have T1 comma commit. What will happen here would be I have to undo of T1. So whenever I'm trying to perform undo, I have to go with the older values of A and B. So since I've got T1 comma start, I do not have the value T1 comma commit. I have to perform an undo. So undo of Ti will make the database again back to its stable position, making A value as 100 and B value as 200. So this way, I'm going to work with the recovery process in immediate database modification. Is it clear, or you have got any issues with this, Mark? Is it clear, or any issues with immediate database modification? What about others? Amma, because why you are redoing it is because the values have been entered or not in order to see that you are performing a redo operation. That's it. So redo is you are just trying to overwrite the new values into the database. That's it. Is it okay? 72? Any other questions, Ma, in log-based recovery? Now, see, now what we are going with is the next concept is using the concept of a checkpoint. The next mechanism, you're going to use something called as a checkpoint. Okay. So what we have been doing until now is we are trying to maintain a set of log records. But in real time, what will happen would be, if at all the transactions are lengthy, so in order to just maintain the log records, it would be a very lengthy process and it might take a lot of memory space in the computer. Okay, because we have to every time check the log records, every time we have to check the log records. So in order to eliminate that particular burden, what we are trying to do is we are trying to work with something called as a checkpoint. Okay, so keeping and maintaining logs in real time may fill out all the memory space. As time passes, the log may grow too big so that it would be difficult for us to handle. So one alternative mechanism would be the concept of using a checkpoint mark, where all the previous logs are removed from the system and stored permanently into a storage disk. And the checkpoint declares a point before which the DBMS was in a consistent state. The DBMS was in a consistent state. So I'll just try to make this particular concept simple for you. So maybe you are just working on writing maybe a book. So you are interested in writing a book, and that book consists of around 10 chapters. Each chapter is consisting of 10 pages. Okay, assume it's just a simple example in order to make the concept easier. Okay, so 10 chapters divided into 10 pages makes it 100 pages book you are going to write. So what you try to do is You are just working with the first chapter as of now, and you have written 5 pages. You have written 5 pages. Okay. And after writing 5 pages, what you try to do is you try to find out whether there are any grammatical mistakes, or the font is proper or not, or you have put all the punctuation marks, everything right or not. You just try to check. And once you feel that after out of the 5 pages, you have thoroughly gone through 3 pages. You have thoroughly gone through 3 pages. And after working out on 3 pages, you are feeling bored, or you might feel restless. So what you are trying to do is, after the 3rd page, you try to put something which tells you that until this particular point, I have checked the book thoroughly. I need to start after this particular point. Okay, so that the next time you won't be working with the first 3 pages, rather you will be starting from the 4th page. Is that what we do or normal? Again, would you be starting with the first page, or would you be starting with the 4th page? Can you please respond? Would you be starting with the first page or the 4th page? Now, what will happen if you start from the 4th page, ma? What would happen if you start from the 4th page? A lot of time would be saved, and a lot of memory would be saved if at all you want to write some points into that again. So what you have done over here is, after going through 3 pages, you have created a checkpoint over there. You have created a checkpoint over there, specifying that whenever you start again, you need not go through the first 3 pages. That is the concept of your checkpoint in your recovery process. Is it clear, ma? Did you just understand the concept, what we are trying to do in checkpoints? Okay, now see here, what I do whenever I want to recover using checkpoints. What I do over here, see, checkpoint failure. There is a checkpoint, there is a failure. Now there are 4 transactions, T1, T2, T3, T4. And whenever I want to look for recovery, the recovery system reads log files from the end to the start. That is from T4 to T1. It reads log files from T4 to T1. Recovery system maintains 2 lists. It maintains a redo list and it maintains an undo list. It maintains a redo list, it maintains an undo list. The transaction is put into redo state if the recovery sees a log tn comma start and tn comma commit or tn comma commit. So I told you, you're going to work with 2 lists. One is redo, the other one is undo list. Same as you have done with your immediate database modification. The redo would be consisting of all the transaction wherein you have the transaction with a commit log record. Okay. Now, for example, in the log file, transaction T2, T3 will have tn comma start and tn comma commit. So see, before failure occurred, I have T2, this is the beginning, this is the end. So this is the starting of the transaction T2, this is the ending of the transaction T2. So T2 comma start I have written, T2 comma commit. With respect to T3, T3 comma start, T3 comma commit. But with respect to T4, I have got only T4 comma start. T4 comma commit is coming after failure. Just try to understand this. So the transaction T1 will have what? Only tn comma commit. Talking about the transaction T1, I've already created a checkpoint here. With respect to a particular time, I've created a checkpoint. And before the creation of the checkpoint, I had T1 comma start, and after that T1 comma commit. So before the failure occurs, T1 commit, T2 commit, T3 commit is there, and T4 start is there with all T2 and T3 starts. Okay. Now, what I can do with respect to this checkpoint based recovery would be, it has to put T1, T2, T3 transactions into the redo list. And the other transaction T4 would be put into the undo list. So the transaction is put into undo state if the recovery system sees a log with Tn comma start but no commit. Hence, transaction T4 will have Tn start, so T4 will be put into the undo list. So what I have to do? I have to go with all redo operations with respect to T1, T2, T3. And next, what I'll do, I can put a checkpoint over here. So once I put a checkpoint over here, if at all I have a failure somewhere here, I need not go with T1, T2, T3 again. I have to start with T4 only. That is the concept of your checkpoint. Okay, is it clear? So this is about your checkpoints. Recovery using checkpoints. Is it clear, or any issues with checkpoint? How we are going to work with checkpoint? How we are going to put transaction into a redo list and undo list? Okay. Now, example on your multiple granularity, I'll be just covering that. I think I've given you all the points in multiple granularity. Just go through this particular compatibility matrix for a minute. Compatibility matrix for a minute. Go through the compatibility matrix for a minute. Now, looking at the example, how we are going to work with multiple granularity. Now, take down this example. The same thing I'm working with my database is divided into area A1, A2. Area 1 is divided into F1, FA and FB. A2 is divided into FC. Database I've given you the structure. Database is consisting of areas, areas are consisting of files, files are consisting of records. Okay. So the same way I'm going to work with over here. FA file is divided into record RA1, RA2, so on, RN. FB is divided into RB, R1, R2, R3, so on, and FC is divided into record C1 to CM. Now see, what I'm trying to do is a transaction wants to read RA2. A transaction wants to read record RA2. Transaction tries to read RA2. So when can I perform a read operation with respect to a record would be, I have to have a shared log on that particular data item. Because I'm talking about the concept of locking, before I perform a particular operation, I need to lock the record. So what is the concept would be, in order for a transaction T1 to read a data item A2, I have to have this in slog. So this is nothing but shared log I have to acquire. I have to acquire a shared log. But the conditions with respect to your multiple granularity was, whenever I want to lock a child node, its parent should be logged. I hope you remember the condition I told you in the previous class. Whenever I want to lock a child node, I have to lock its parents. Now, in order to access this, I have to lock A1. In order to access A1, I have to lock DB. That's nothing but the database. Now, the concept is I have to lock RA2 in shared log. In order to access or read RA2, I have to see whether its parent is logged or not. I have to see whether its parent is logged or not. That is what I have to look at. So here, everything is empty. I want to acquire a shared lock on RA2. Now, when this would be granted would be, this should be logged, this should be logged, this should be logged. Okay, now see. When can I say that I can acquire a shared lock on a particular node would be, I have to go with this point. Transaction Ti can lock a node in S or IS mode only if Ti currently has the parent of the node logged in either IX or IS mode. So if at all I want a transaction to lock a particular node in shared or intention shared mode, I have to see that its parent is either logged in IX or IS mode. Okay, so try to remember this condition. Now look, RA2, I want to acquire this in shared mode. I have to see that FA should be logged in either IS or IX mode. Since there is no log with respect to FA, I can write here IS. So if FA is logged in IS mode, then only I can access RA2 in shared mode. But here, if at all I have to log this, its parent should also be logged. What mode? I can say again, I have to log this in IS mode. So this also I have to lock in IS mode. Since there is no lock, I can lock that in IS mode. And here, in order to work with this, I have to lock this. Since there is no lock existing, again here also, I can lock this in IS mode. So whenever I want to read a particular database item RA2, I have to lock its parents. The first is satisfied. The first is satisfied. Now, T2 modifies RA2. A transaction T1 is reading RA2. That is acceptable. T2 modifies RA2. So in order to work with modification, I have to have an exclusive lock over here. Is shared and exclusive acceptable, ma? Shared and exclusive is not acceptable. Hence, T4, sorry, second option is not possible as Xlock is not compatible with Slock. Xlock is not compatible with Slock. Shared is not compatible with exclusive lock. Now, T3 reads all records of FA. T3 reads all records of FA. Okay, now what is happening? T3 reads all records of FA. Now here I want to have an S-lock. Here I want to have an S-lock. In order to read the data items FA, I'm not reading this summa. I'm interested in this. So this will make all this lock implicitly. So FA is requested to be read by a transaction T3. FA. So S. Now already there is an intention shared lock on FA. I have to see whether intention shared is compatible with S lock. So I have to go to compatibility matrix. IS with S is compatible. If at all it is compatible, I can work with that. If at all it is not compatible, I cannot grant. Okay. Now, okay. So reading is fine. Now, instead of reading, I'm going with something called as writing. If at all I want to write ma, again what will happen? I have to work with X mode over here. I have to work with X mode. Now, in order to grant FA to be written by transaction T3, is IS compatible with X? Is IS compatible with X? What I have to see? I have to see this first. If at all this is valid, I have to go to the top next. Again, go to the top next. Now, look over here. Third is not possible as SLOCKS is not compatible with IX. So I cannot perform read and write if at all something is already logged with a particular mode. So this way you are going to work with what ma? Your multiple granularity. You have any questions on this? You can ask me ma. Any questions on this? You can ask me. But you have to remember all the rules, the compatibility matrix in order to work with your multiple granularity. Is it clear, ma? Now there is some sort of extension ma, which is nothing but graph-based protocol. So these are the differences between your tree and this. So whenever you're working with a graph-based protocol, you can only have exclusive locks. And a first lock can be acquired on any data item with respect to a transaction. So you can acquire the first lock and subsequent locks are allowed only if the parent is locked. So first lock with respect to a transaction can be acquired on any data item. Next, subsequent locks are allowed only if the parent is locked. You can release the locks at any point, and each data item with respect to graph-based protocol can be accessed at most once. And once you have released the lock, relocking by the same transaction is not possible. You cannot relock the same database item which has already been locked again and again. So this is a briefing about your graph-based protocol. And then you have the last topic in your 4th unit, which I'll be covering in the next class, Saturday's class. Checkpoint is done. You have got something called as shadow paging. Shadow paging, and the last topic would be recovery with concurrent transactions. So it will take around 10 minutes to complete these 2 topics, and I'll be starting off the 5th unit in the next class. You have any questions, ma? If at all you do not have any questions, we can start working with the activities. Shall I start the activities?